We got to start leveraging. We got to start creating our own data and knowing what's going on to where we can leverage it against them.
And that actually really leads into the fourth way that the load boards are working against carrier is because the data are for the brokers, the shippers.
They giving you bullshit data. If you so happen, we all be in situations where you still dealing with the load board. One thing that I think if I can encourage y'all to do when you're not driving or whatever, or once you have secured your load for that particular that you pulled off the load board, cut off the location. Don't just let DAT have access to your location when you're not working or you're not looking for a load.
Welcome to Azigos, the Truckers Lounge, where we talk raw, real, and unfiltered about the trucking industry. But we don't just leave it there. We also empower those ready to reclaim and drive the future of the trucking industry. We have a great episode for you today. In today's episode, we're talking load boards, something every carrier and owner-operator knows something about, and everyone has an opinion about. You may think it's the lifeline of your business, but we're here today to show you the complete opposite. So come on into the lounge. That's Azigos, the Truckers Lounge. How are you today, Kevin?
Oh, hey, how you doing today, Tracy? You looking lovely. I told you about using my government name, but it's okay. It's okay.
You did tell me. What's up, KT? Let me try that again. How you doing, KT?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm a little slow motion today. I'm gonna try to keep it as professional as possible.
Okay.
But you gotta understand, I'm a real driver. I'm a real big driver. So you know what happened when you touch down.
Okay.
I live like a trucker from the 80s. We go hard when we touch down. Plenty of women, plenty of hard substances.
Mm-hmm.
We just have a good time, gambling, all that good stuff. So
okay.
When you look at me, you're looking at a driver with the spirit of a driver from the 80s.
Okay, got it.
Absolutely.
But without hesitation, today we have a great topic. We're talking about load boards. We know a lot of carriers think it's the lifeline of their business, but you're here to tell them different. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you think of the load board, you're thinking like, hey, that's the first thing I need once I get my company up and operational. But not realizing that if you do a deep dive into what the load board is and what it's actually doing for and against your business, then you might, give a second thought.
All right. But we're not going to leave you hanging. If you hang in here with this episode, by the end of this episode, we're going to share with you strategies and other sources for finding your freight other than the load board. Is that correct, Kevin?
Right,
KT?
right. And don't get, anxious about the situation, because it's going to be like a gradual, pulling off effect. I can show you things and different techniques, not an absolute, I got to shut down me, paying for my load board subscription, but just give you something to think about. We all in this together, man.
All right. So you've been in the industry for over 20 plus years. How were you first introduced to load boards? What were you told about them? And how did you use them initially?
Well, yeah, I got introduced to the load board. Of course, I didn't get introduced to the load board until I started my own trucking business. And of course, after I got my DOT number and got my own authority, once I got all that stuff set up, and your business get registered, then I didn't really have to look for them. They started advertising for me, advertising directly to me. And, pretty much word of mouth, because I know plenty of other big drivers in the business who do it for themselves. They the one, suggested what load board for what, depending on what I want to accomplish.
Okay. And we're probably The number one load board that everyone knows about first and foremost is probably DAT. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I mean,
DAT is the big dog.
it's the big dog. They have
Right.
the lion's share of all the freight.
Right.
Okay.
All the brokers like to use them.
All right.
Right.
And but really, as you say, the system is tilted against them.
Absolutely. Yeah, the system is actually going against your driver because I know everybody, being made aware of this thing called algorithm based off, social media, you got your YouTube page, you got your Instagram, but the algorithm is really something that's been in existence for a while. And a company like DAT has been using it against you, driver.
Wow. So let's walk through several ways, particularly 4 ways about how load boards like the motherboard of them all, DAT, even the load boards for the private brokers, because you see a lot of brokerages coming up with their own in-house load boards, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, because they trying to maximize, they system and what they have as well. So you got a lot of mega brokers, they got a lot of freight or whatever. They creating their own load boards because really they want to collect their own data. Absolutely.
Okay, but equally still working against the carrier, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So number one area that these load boards are working against the carrier has to do with price transparency. Price transparency is an illusion. Can you elaborate on that for us, KT?
Yeah, so one of the biggest claims to fame, like DAT, they got a lot of in-house purchasing, whether you want to see what the average mile per pay for a specific load in like a 1 week span, 2 week span, month span, depending how much up to date real time accuracy you want, and that depends on how much you're going to pay your monthly subscription. But in all actuality, what makes it an illusion is because, contrary to popular belief, if you just use your common sense, big driver, there's no way a company is going to break ground in a specific area to build warehouses to house their product and move their product without having an exact figure knowing how much it's going to take to move that product.
Okay.
And they're not doing their projections based on a daily, weekly, or monthly driving price. You know what I mean? They figure all this stuff out and they know exactly what they're going to pay to haul that freight when they break ground for building that warehouse.
Okay.
Right. So the real-time transparent and data is really what the load board and brokers are using, depending on how many trucking company owner operators or carriers is in the area at that time. That's what moved the price up and down, knowing our positioning.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay. And so they have an advantage because they have all the information to have that pricing. But
To have that pricing. Back in the day, it was deemed, it was like the unthinkable was to try to get a load move for how much they were charging for gas per gallon in the Pacific area. How much they paid you per mile would not drop below whatever the gas costs in that area. And as you see now, we pay $3, $4 of gas, but it's rare that you can get a load that's paying that type of money per mile. And it's basically they know you have to do it because they're being able to leverage you because of the capacity of companies or drivers in the area that they can see real time.
oh, okay, interesting. So that actually leads us into the number 2
Right.
strategy about how the load boards are working against you. And it is because, carriers that are so desperate to keep their trucks moving will underbid and take those very low
Right.
rate.
Absolutely. They taking that low rate, somebody who don't know the business, or they just worry about, keeping it moving or whatnot. They're not really looking at margins, because if you want to have a successful trucking company, It's about the margins. It's not how much the load pay overall. It's about how much is really going to go in your pocket after you take out the fuel, the daily maintenance, you know what I mean, your per diem, things of that nature. So that's really what you're actually making off that load. You have to pay attention to the margins. And to be honest with you, if you got your own trucking company, I like to add an extra margin, you know what I'm saying? And that's my pay to play fund, you know what I mean? Because I'm not going to be out on that road not living the lifestyle of an original truck driver. Yeah, original truck driver. And like I say, you supposed to be able to take care of 3 or 4.
So if a broker is posting rates, loads at a low rate, and they see others doing it, it sort of breeds and encourages, all the masses to continue posting loads at a low rate as opposed to really posting them at a fair rate. Because if they see one brokerage doing it, then it'll
that's not really it. It's based on capacity.
Based on capacity.
How you constantly still seeing commercial and advertising, and even the government talking about we don't have enough drivers. You don't have enough drivers to move the freight. Yeah, that might be so, but that don't have anything to do with your situation. What has to do with your situation is the capacity of carriers and owner-operators in a Pacific area at a Pacific time when they want to post that load.
And they have access to that
information. They have access to that.
Okay. And
courtesy of the load board.
Courtesy of the load board. I was about to say, and companies like DAT makes that information available to them.
Absolutely. Because if you download their app or you on their website, one of the first things they're going to do is ask for permission for access of your GPS location.
All right. There it is. You guys cannot get this type of information anywhere else. That's why it is so important. Please help us keep going and keep encouraging us to share this information with you. So please like, comment, and subscribe to help grow our channel. All right, moving on to the third way the load boards are working against you carriers, and that is too many middlemen. We know that the broker relationship is that the shipper pays the broker posts the loads, and then carriers look at these load boards to negotiate rates, but with the broker. But can you imagine an infrastructure where you don't even need the middleman? I'm not saying let's get rid of brokers entirely, but if you can create a system that has competition to where carriers actually have more flexibility and more option to not have to work with a middleman. Can you imagine that? What do you say about that, KT?
I mean, ultimately, that should be our goal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the goal. The middleman, yes, they are a problem. It's not that I totally disrespect, all brokers, and all brokers are having a cutthroat attitude, but they need to be regulated. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be the one to be able to live high off the hog if you're not the one doing the work. And so the only way people don't change because they see the light, they change because they feel the heat. And we as truck drivers or whatever, we the one that make everything move. We need to put the heat, on the middleman. On the middleman, all these different companies that been set up, you know what I mean, to take a cut or cap off what we doing. We need to be able to put the pressure on them, and they're not going to do it for us. We going to have to do it with the trucking community, sharing the information. We going to have to be the ones that put it together and start using. We can't cry about the game. We got to start leveraging. We got to start creating our own data and knowing what's going on to where we can leverage it against them.
And that actually really leads into the fourth way that the load boards are working against carrier is because the data are for the brokers, the shippers, but
excuse my French, but I want to say, because this is important to me, they giving you bullshit data. They putting a mirage, they got a rouge over your eyes. They making the freight access and giving out these numbers that keep going up and down that really working against you. They giving you data that's really getting used against you. But because you don't know the details of how the system is set up against you, of course you just go along with it.
You just go along with it. All
Right.
right. So let's transition. How do you fight back? How do you leverage and turn it around to where you are now not solely relying upon a system that's working against you, but rather you're leveraging it to work for you? Best way to do it is have a number of alternative options for finding your freight. Number one option, let's give the people a tip. What's the number one alternative source?
Number one alternative source is going directly to the shipper. And I know that seems, overwhelming at times, but you have plenty, especially when you're talking about small shippers. They have human resources, or they have operations manager. First thing, you want to make sure you always have yourself presentable, but it doesn't hurt to ask questions, especially if you don't did that load a couple times. Ask them about the opportunity to deal with them directly. And as you can see, if you get that opportunity to deal with them directly, as I have had
Dedicated freight opportunity?
I had a contract, what I dealt directly with the shipper, and you'll be amazing what the rate is per mile when you deal directly with the shipper.
And so maybe in another episode, you could go into a little bit more detail about that contract opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. We can go into that detail.
Okay.
But yeah, first tip, if you notice that you're doing a Pacific load, going to a Pacific warehouse on a regular basis, maybe use your game, man. A lot of y'all YNs and a lot of y'all drivers, y'all think y'all got game, but you can't be afraid to open your mouth, find out what's going on.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
Right, that's first technique. Go ahead.
Okay. Technique number 2, what's your recommendation?
Technique number 2, you can do the same thing with brokers, because most brokers, they might work for a big brokering firm, but then a lot of times you deal with the broker agent, you know what I mean? You can develop a relationship with that Pacific broker agent where, y'all get on a personal level, try to, get as personal as possible, where you're becoming more than just a number and maybe a name. Y'all develop, y'all talk nice to each other. You might give him more priority than the other brokers or whatever. Y'all develop a relationship and, y'all kind of start working together. He might want to show you a little bit more love. The more that you show loyalty to him, or be able to be an advantage for him, then he'll become an advantage for you. So a personal relationship with the broker agent, developing that, if you do a couple of loads with him, that's a technique too, where he might not try to whip you as bad.
So to reinforce that, I'm on LinkedIn. I know many of you carriers don't necessarily use LinkedIn. Recent as this week, I saw a post on LinkedIn. Some freight brokers were having a conversation and commenting around a post about, do they always post their loads on load boards? And the overwhelming comment to that was, no, they do not. That oftentimes they have personal relationships with carriers and they will call carriers personally to offer up loads. So that is definitely a real thing. And that's really just giving you insight into how they're thinking as well. So it is really worth that extra effort to build those personal relationships.
Right, absolutely.
All right. You have a couple of more tips for the people?
Yeah, I got a couple of more tips.
Okay.
So if you so happen, we all be in situations where, especially what we not knowing what we might know as of today, you still dealing with the load board. A thing that I think, if I can encourage y'all to do when you're not driving or whatever, or once you have secured your load for that particular that you pulled off the load board, cut off the location. Don't just let DAT have access to your location when you're not working or you're not looking for a load.
Interesting, because then they won't be able to see the capacity.
They won't be able to see the capacity. So if you're not actually using the app, cut off your location.
That's game.
But I really got something deeper if you kind of hit me on the DM where I really can show. We might talk about that a little later, but that's the number one thing you need to do. Second thing, don't try to book your loads too far in advance. The only load you need to really worry about booking in advance is your backhaul. If you're not doing a backhaul, don't book your load in advance because they're going to whip you, on the rate. Yeah, they're going to whoop you on the rate if you try to book that load too early.
Okay.
Secondly, lastly, I want to say, because we don't want to get too much with the time,
Yes.
is try to book your load during non-peak hours. See, if you're a real trucker, you supposed to be able to go at different times of the day. This ain't no 9 to 5. This ain't no forklift operator. This ain't no particular vocation to where you can just maximize your lifestyle on a daily basis. That's why I go so hard once I touch down. You know what I mean? That's when I catch up on everything I missed. But while you working, you need to be prepared to leave out at non-peak hours. You need to be looking for your load 2, 3, 1 in the morning, see what trickle in or somewhere they got to get out. They in an emergency situation. They got to get that load out or get that load booked. You'll notice the rate is vastly different.
There you have it. That is just real game. That is real game from an expert who's been in the game for 20 plus years. Where else are you going to hear valuable information like that? Nowhere but in the lounge. That's why we are really asking you, please help us grow our channel. We are so excited. We have more to share with you. And we really want to turn this trucking game around for the carriers and the owner operators, because in all actuality, you all are the backbone of this economy, but the numbers and your reward and your return on investment does not reflect that. So we can change that starting here on this channel. Any parting words?
Please share with us the broker that you use on what particular load board who consistently have low rates. I'm gonna tell you, for me, I can tell you right off the bat.
Give us one.
It's TQL.
Ooh,
I hate
no
to say it,
to
but
TQL.
Yeah. Well, I might stand corrected because Coyote is getting a little worse than TQL. I mean, them two brokers, they gonna whip you if they able to whoop you. Now one thing about Coyote, if you do a couple of loads in a row and you got access to their app and they got you in there, they will show a little bit more love to you if you working off their particular app or whatever. But in them streets,
yes,
on that board, on that DAT, hey, get ready for a greasing.
We don't do politics on this channel. However, again, I'm on LinkedIn. I've looked at the TQL pages. The optics are the optics. If you go look at their TQL pages and the demographics of the people who make up their freight broker agents, it will not be a surprise as to why they're whipping the carriers, because we know the carriers tend to be in one demographic and their freight broker agents tend to be in another. Just that it is what it is. So, and once you realize that, you'll be able to, navigate this industry a little bit better. So, hey, that's it for today.
As you can see, I'm a little amped up. I came in here a little slow because I told you I live hard out there. But when we get to talking about these brokers and this low boy, hey, it made my antennas, it made my boys get a little bit, raised, because I'm telling you, man, it's awful. We the ones supposed to be eating the steaks. The brokers, they supposed to be eating the beanie weenies. We the winners.
All right. Until next time, please comment below. We love hearing from you. And thank you to those who have really been helping our viewership and joined our channel. We really appreciate it, and we see you. So until next time, we're signing off from the Zigos, the Truckers Lounge. Thank you.